So, you want to be a real estate investor, but where do you start? How do you know what information and sources to trust? That's where I come in. I'm Jonny Cattani, and this is the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. Hey guys, real quick, before we start, go to investwithcattani.com and download my free ebook, Is Commercial Real Estate Recession Proof? Now to today's show. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jonny Cattani, and I am joined today by Steve Rozenberg. Steve is a real estate investor, business owner, and airline pilot. He uses his knowledge and experience of being an international airline pilot to build, scale, grow, and sell the fastest growing property management company in Texas. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Really excited. We've been having a great conversation off camera. Really excited to chat today. Obviously have a pretty awesome career, but let's rewind as we do with all of our guests at the beginning. What kind of led you, into this and growing the property management company?
Yeah, good question. So what got me into real estate in general was when 9/11, as we all know, a tragedy that befell us. 2 days after 9/11, I got a furlough notice from the airline. And the safe, secure job that I thought was safe and I thought was secure was neither. And it made me realize that I could not depend on a job, that was not something that I could rely on, not something I could depend on, and I needed to do something else. And so I started looking to see, what do people do that are wealthy? I mean, as a pilot, I was hired with at the time Continental Airlines. I was 25 years old. That's all I'd ever studied to do my whole life. All I ever wanted to do was be a pilot. I got that job, but if you are not qualified, if nobody wants you to fly their planes, you really have a skill that's useless to the world. So I started learning real estate, started reading a book a week on everything I could because I didn't know anything about it. Standard, like most people, I'm sure, like most of your viewers and listeners, I learned how to flip wholesale. I did some things right. I did more things wrong. I got my ass kicked. I got ripped off. I got, bought the wrong properties, you name it, I did it. But I learned from my mistakes and I started understanding how real estate works and, more importantly, how business works. So that took me to the second half of my journey. Was I took my knowledge as an airline pilot, knowing systems, structure, procedures, being trained by Boeing and the airlines. And we started a property management company originally for our own self-preservation in our properties. What we ended up doing is we learned how to scale a business. And as you said, we took it, we created it, we scaled it to 3 major cities in Texas. And eventually we sold to a venture capital-backed company and exited. And that was basically this is over obviously a many year span, but essentially that's what we did. But the knowledge of being an airline pilot and understanding how businesses work, how an airline works with the systems, the structure, that's how we did it. And we were able to scale. And so that's the second half of my life, if you will, is I show people how to do that with their businesses. While I'm still an airline pilot, I fly a Boeing 777 for United Airlines now. And I do it because I love doing it. I don't need to do it per se, but we talked about where I travel to. I like the lifestyle that it gives me. And so, yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Awesome. I love it. So kind of talk about, I wish we could do a whole episode just on being a pilot, because I wanted to be a pilot for a very long time. We'll probably get my pilot's license, but that's neither here nor there. Talk about, you mentioned that working for the airline taught you about businesses and systems. How was that? How were you able to kind of learn all of those things?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you an example. I'll paint you a picture. And I think once I do this, it'll be very clear to you and the listeners. So Perfect. Something as simple, next time you're at the airport and you see an aircraft come up to the gate, right? People don't really pay much attention to what's going on, right? So the aircraft I fly it's a Boeing 777. It weighs 600,000 pounds and it holds up to 350 people. Basically, it's an apartment complex with wings.
Absolutely.
When this aircraft comes to the gate, a whole city of workers descend like ants, and they're all doing stuff. What you see is chaos, but what we see is what we call the dance. Okay. And the dance is 350 people get off the aircraft. You have all of their bags and cargo is getting offloaded. You have maintenance is checking the aircraft, checking the engines, checking the structure. Cleaners are cleaning it. Caterers are recatering it. Flight attendants are doing their checks. Fuelers are hooking up these fuel valves to this thing. It holds 230,000 pounds of fuel. Okay. Pilots, we're up front. We're checking weather. We're checking the route. We're checking destination. And we're going on this whole journey. And within 1 hour, that aircraft has 350 people reloaded. All of their cargo is loaded. And we push back from the gate. And not one of us has had to talk to anyone else because we all know our job, our roles, and our duties.
Wow.
So if you think about that in a business model, so I tell business owners all the time, even if it's real estate, right? You get a deal, you've got an apartment, whatever it is, you have a dance. You just don't know it. And that's the scary thing. My question to you is could I go into your business and do my job without having to talk to anyone by having structure, checklists, systems, all those things? And if the answer is no, then I tell you, you don't own a business, you own a job because it's chaos. Normally we all know it's chaos, right? And with the thing is the challenge that we all have with this is we become people dependent, not systems dependent. So if you look at an airline, now the interesting thing about what I just described to you, this can be in Tokyo, Japan, Sydney, Australia, Los Angeles, London. It all operates the same. Like we know exactly what's going on. So when you think about that as a business model that's scalable and duplicatable, my question to people that I work with and coach and all, real estate people and business owners, like, could I do that in your business? And they're like, I don't even know how to even begin. I'm like, then you don't own a business. I hate to say it, but that's the challenge. So that's that to give you that answer. That's what we did with our business. We created our own dance inside the business. Now, 60% of our company was outsourced into Mexico. That's how good we got at structures and systems in our company.
And what were those roles that were outsourced?
Oh, well, anything that did not require a license or did not require someone to physically be there and shake someone's hand was outsourced. So our marketing was outsourced, our inbound sales was outsourced, our accounting was outsourced, our tenant relations were outsourced, our maintenance division was outsourced. I mean, anything. Now we had upper levels that would handle stuff in Houston. We got so good, we actually created our own virtual assistant company to place them for other people because we figured out the formula. And what I've learned, just like from being an airline pilot, is everything has a recipe, right? It's like baking a cake. You don't put the frosting on and then put it in the oven. There's a recipe to bake a good cake. There's also a recipe to create a successful business model. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, just bake the cake based on the recipe that someone else has done that's successful.
Yeah, gosh, that's so true. And that's what I really love about the commercial real estate industry is that, it's been around so long, the recipe's written. All you got to do is follow it, and sure, you might be able to make some tweaks here and there, maybe like a little spice in there, whatever it might be. But ultimately the recipe, is what it is. So at what point when you guys started the company and were growing it, did you realize you were like onto something and, creating this, what ultimately became, the fastest growing property management company in Texas?
It's interesting. When we first started, I remember going to these events, right? Me and my business partner, we'd see these companies and they just seemed behemoth. And I'm like, how does a company get that big? Like, we maybe were managing a couple hundred properties. And I'm like, how do they have 500, 800? Like that's beyond measure of systems and structure. But one thing that we did is we focused on being business owners, not property managers. And so we worked on the business and we worked very diligently to remove ourselves from operators. And we looked at it as a business. So if you ever read the book Traction, I was the visionary. My business partner was the integrator. We didn't even know it at the time because the book wasn't even out yet, but that was us. And we were very good at staying in our lanes of our roles. I was in charge of sales and marketing. He was in charge of operations and accounting. That's that. If you look at disc profiling, that's normally where these roles sit. I had the big picture. I was making big relationships. I spoke all over the United States. I did 3 tours speaking around Australia. I spoke around Canada. So I was the face of the company, but my business partner really was the one that was running it because he was making sure it all worked. So what happened was, is as we started doing this, we were just kind of focused on building a business. And next thing you know, we started catching these other companies and they started coming to us. And they're like, how are you guys doing this? Like within 7 years, we grew to 1,000 properties. And they're
Wow.
like, how are you doing this? And we had inbound marketing. So we focused on education, content marketing before it was a thing. But we grew through education, we grew through inbound leads, and we were getting 150 to 200 leads a month. And we never, and we did it all because we were educators and we made a difference. Our point of difference is that we were investors ourselves. We owned our own assets and we look at it from their perspective. So what happened was, is we started making a shift. And again, this was 7 years. It wasn't a long run, but during that time, I would say at about 3.5 years is when we started kind of turning heads and they're like, who are these guys from Texas? Like these guys are just, and what's interesting, the one thing that we did from the day that we started our business, and I think this is for listeners watching or listening or watching, whatever. The one thing that we did is we got a business coach on day one. We stuck with that coach for 7 years. And
Wow.
this guy kicked our ass every single week. We would walk out like 2 inches tall thinking like, man, we are morons. But you know what though? He was crafting us and building us to be business owners. So that momentum, once we got it spinning and we understand business and, acquisition costs, client strategies, all these things, man, we just rocket ship past everybody. And we were looking at doing a licensing model in Australia because we were getting so big and we were having big conversations as business owners, not as property managers. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that we just thought differently, I guess.
Absolutely. No, that's incredible. And what a great perspective to take on it, right? Instead of focusing so much on being great property managers, which of course, that's your business. So by focusing on the business and working on the business, not in the business, which is a huge thing. And I'm sure you can speak to that as a coach. That's probably, we were kind of talking about that, you own a job. That's someone who's probably working in their business, right?
Yeah. Well, and the challenge is here's the crux of it. And again, I've worked with hundreds of business owners and real estate investors and all the other thing. The biggest challenge is normally the person, right? It's between two ears. It's ego and pride. We think that because we started a business or our name is on the door, that we need to be the one that does it, right? And so what you do is when you get employees and staff, the great thing about a business is the ability to leverage and scale other people, other systems, other people's money. You can scale all these things. Like when we get a property, we leverage the bank, we leverage appraisers, we leverage all these people, but we're not so good at leveraging our own employees. And so I'll give you another example. Here's another example. I'll relate it to flying. So when most people, right, when they own a business and they have some employees, whether they're virtual assistants, staffing, whatever, if the person is not doing their job, a lot of times what happens is they will step in, help out. And if the person is really screwing up, they're going to push them out of the way because they don't want to get a lawsuit. They don't want to get sued. They don't want, their name's on the door, their whatever, blah, 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 their insurance, they get sued, right? So most owners will agree that, yeah, they will do that. And I understand and I respect that. But here's my question that I come back with. When you get on an aircraft, you turn right. You go to your seat, you sit down, you buckle up, you put your headphones on, you don't have a care in the world. Your biggest concern is if you're going to be on time or early. God forbid you be late. But you never turn left. You know what's left? That's where we sit. That's where the pilots sit. You don't know me. You've never met me, but you trust me with your life. You don't know if I've had a good day, a bad day, if I've been fighting with my wife. You know nothing about me, but you never once think about getting up and getting involved in my business. And for 30 years that I've been a pilot, I've never once had a passenger get up and say, hey, Steve, get out of the way. I took a lesson. I think I got this. I'm going to fly the aircraft. I've never had that, right? So I tell people, you trust me with your life and you don't know me, but you don't trust your own employees that you interviewed, hired, and trained. Where's the disconnect? So when you think about it from that perspective, you're like, I never thought about it. I'm like, you need to make your business systems dependent. Look, pilots aren't perfect. we make mistakes. We make mistakes all the time. And I hate to scare anyone, but we make fatal errors. The key is we have systems and checklists that catch those errors so that we don't kill people. So
Right.
my question to the business owner is, do you have those in your business so that you don't financially kill you and your family and your business? The answer is no. I would say that's probably a good place to start.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. That's a very, very interesting perspective. And what do you find are some of the most common things in that disconnect when they aren't trusting or empowering their employees?
Well, what they normally don't do is they do not have a training system. They don't have any way to train their employees. They lead through what's called abdication, meaning they just dump it on them and walk away. And then they're shocked that it doesn't work. And so normally, look, either you have a system problem or you have a person problem in your business. Both of those problems lead back to bad leadership, because that means that the leader has not set up the structure correctly. They haven't trained them. Normally, like I tell people, could I step in anyone's business and be able to, without talking to someone, sit down at the desk, open up a systems manual, do the job, and never talk to anybody and leave the day, and I've done everything that's required of that role? If not, we have a system, we have a training problem. And, look, I get it. When we're starting out and maybe you have one employee and you may think to yourself, Steve, this is so unrealistic. Like, you're a pilot, you built a multi-million-dollar business. But I tell you what, if you don't see it in your head first, if you don't see how you're going to scale your business and create the multi-billion-dollar company, it'll never happen. And what I tell people, so going back to your question, the reason businesses don't work is because the owner is a $50,000 CEO and they're trying to build a $10 million company. It's never going to happen. It's the law of the lid, right? It's only going to grow to the ability or the inability of the leader.
Wow. That's so powerful. So I guess talk about, for early entrepreneurs, people who are just starting out, for me, I have an assistant, she does all my scheduling, social media, that kind of thing. So what are some things that, as you start scaling or you're starting to recognize that that's coming, what are some things you can do to start, honing in on which systems to build first and how to build them?
That's a great question. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's missed. So if you look at a business, right, a business in general is, you could break down your business into three main parts. The first part is monetization. Second part is systems and admin. And third part is the training and scalability. Okay, so just those three parts. So if we took the first part, monetization, this is making the phone ring, right? This is sales and marketing. If you do not monetize your business, you're going out of business. You just don't realize it yet until your bank account is negative, right? So most businesses can solve a short-term problem by figuring out monetization, right? You get enough money, you can solve a lot of problems. A lot of business owners focus on the product and not the marketing first. I personally think that's a mistake, because you can make the best burger in the world, but next to McDonald's, you will go bankrupt. Not because you don't make a better burger, because they have a better marketing machine. You need to focus on making the phone ring. And what I would suggest is you have to figure out what I would suggest, and there's something I'll throw out there free for your clients or for your listeners, is grade your clients. So if you've been in business 6 months or a year or 2 years, take all the clients that you've ever done and grade them A, B, C, and D. So we start at the bottom. The D clients are just the shit, right? They waste your time. They're cheap. Every time the phone rings, you're like, oh my God, this is going to be a 30-minute pitch session. That's the Ds, okay? The Cs, those are the people that they're either cheap or they complain, but it's not both. It's one or it's the other, okay? Now the Bs are the easy clients. They pay their bills. They never bitch. They don't complain, and you never hear from them. They're just easy-go-lucky. You like talking to them because they're just steady Eddie, and they're the quiet majority, really, of your clients. The A's are just like the B's, except they are evangelical for you. They are raving fans. They are referring people to you. So what you need to do is you need to take your A's and B's, and you need to figure out what is the commonality between them. What is the income? What is their demographics? What is their age? Even what is their gender? you're going to find a common thread between your A's and B's. Now, once you find that common thread, now you have to find out what problem did they have that I solved for them. Once you figure out what problems they have, because it's very similar, that's your marketing message. Because if you're marketing to D's and getting shit clients, that's not what you want. You've got to figure out how to market to the A's and B's, because that's where your money's made and that's where your time should be spent. So the first thing I would say, going back to your question, if I was an entrepreneur, I would focus on marketing and figuring out, who do I want to go after? Next thing you got to do is you have to have systems, right? So that's the monetization side. The next is the system. So if you look at a system, the definition of a business, as I was taught, is a commercial, profitable enterprise that runs without you, and it has a sale date. So let me explain that to you. Commercial, profitable enterprise is what I just said. That's a business that makes money. That's the monetization. A business that runs without you is a business that's based on systems and structure. So once you figure out, normally every business, and look, despite what everyone thinks, nobody is special, right? Every business has between 8 and 11 systems in their business. So it could be taking an inbound lead, it could be processing the lead, it could be closing, operations, whatever you're doing, right? Every business has 8 to 11. You've got to figure out what those are. Once you figure out what those systems are, and you may not even know yet, they could be grayed out, like, fuck, I don't even know what this is going to be, but I know I need it. Once you figure that out, then you automate it. Well, first you systematize it. So you put it on paper, like, okay, what happens here? What happens here? What happens here? What happens here? So that's how you systemize it, right? And it doesn't have to be complicated. We did ours on paper when we first started. So many people think they need software and all this other crap. You don't, man. It's not that. We're not going to the moon here, right? I mean, you're creating a system. Right. So once you systemize it, then you try to automate it. What can I automate, right? Through software, technology, what can I automate to streamline? And then the last part is you have to outsource it. Outsourcing is to an employee, to a virtual assistant, or through some sort of technology. So you systemize it, you automate it, and then you outsource it. That's the systemization. So commercial, profitable enterprise that runs without you, that's that part. Here's the part that everyone misses. And I missed it too until I was taught, has a sale date. So if you don't have a sale date to your business, and let me just, before people throw their panties in a wad, let me just explain. A sale date doesn't mean you have to sell it. A sale date means that you have a saleable asset. The way you have a saleable asset means that you have a business that does not need your involvement at all, right? That's a saleable asset. If you have to be there, it's not sellable, because They're not buying you, they're buying the system. So you have to create a sale date. And many people, and I was one of them in the beginning, I was like, no, this is a lifetime thing. I'm creating generational wealth. That was bullshit, right? The reality is you have to have a sale date to build your business, so that you know that when you're building it, you have the end in mind. When you get in your car, you have a destination you're going to. That's the end time. You know, if you're going to Disneyland, we want to get there at 8 a.m. Friday morning, such and such, such and such. But most people that build a business, they're running away from the life that they don't want, but they don't know what they're running to. They're just running. It's like getting in your car and just driving with no destination. It's like, where's this business going? When is it completed? What's the goal of this? And so the many times when we start a business, and I'll just go on a quick tirade here, but when we start a business, so many times what we do is, again, we're running away from the life that we don't want. And that's what we're focusing on. We're focusing on what we don't want. Well, whatever you focus on becomes your reality. So guess what you get? You actually get the life that you were running away from. Now you're locked into a job. You hate it. You're miserable. And that's exactly what you went after, because you were running away from it. So when I coach people, I ask them, I go, why are you doing this? What's the reason? And majority of people will tell me all the things that they don't want in life. I don't want a job. I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to worry about this. I don't. And I'll tell them, that wasn't my question. My question is what do you want in life? And they have to think about it. And they're like, you know what? I don't know. I've never really thought about that. And I'm like, if you don't know what you want, you're never going to achieve it. And so here's the thing I want you to think about, and this is for your listeners: real estate, anything. This is all the same. A lot of us get into real estate, or we get into something because we want the freedom, right? But I would just think about this. I'm going to say that's bullshit. Because the reality is you could sell everything you want tomorrow and go live in a tent on the beach, and you can have all the freedom in the world. But you know what you won't like is you will not like the memories that freedom gave you. So you're not going after freedom. You're taking it a step further, and you're actually going after the memories that you want. Maybe it's dinner in the Mediterranean in Greece, and maybe it's going to safari in Africa. Maybe it's, having time with your family. It's not the freedom, it's the memories. We are buying memories, and that's what a business and real estate gives us.
Holy cow. Excuse me while I pick my jaw off the floor here, Steve. Jeez.
Sorry, man. I had this in my mind, so I was just running.
Oh my gosh, that was incredible. Well, we're done. I have nothing else I can add. Yeah. I'm just kidding.
Mic drop, right?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's so powerful. I mean, I when you started bringing that up, I was like, oh yeah, mine isn't don'ts, mine's freedom. And then you literally were like, it's not freedom, it's those memories. But you're exactly right. That's 100% it. And that is definitely not a perspective that I've heard anyone give in terms of, so.
Well, and here's the thing too. And again, I fell into this trap that I was always thinking, okay, once we get to here in the business, man, I'm going to be happy. And oh, you know what? Once we get here, and then I was like, okay, you know what? We're building the business, and now we've got some interest. Once we sell it, and you keep thinking that, and we all do this, I think, we think we're going to bust through this bubble, and then I'm going to be happy, right? Like I'm going to make it into this super secret club that nobody knows about, that I'm in this elite millionaire club. I sold my business for well into 7 figures, right? And the next day I was like, what am I going to do? Like my wife is like, I told my wife, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to take I said, maybe I'll take like 6 months off and just relax. She's like, you'll be doing something in 90 days. Within 30, I already was a VP at another company running their whole division. And so the only thing I could relate it to, and this was something interesting personally for me, is I had to realize, like, it's not the destination, it's the journey. Like the
Absolutely.
A shark swimming in water isn't going anywhere. It's swimming. That's what it's doing. That's what it does. I swim. That's what I do. People are always like, Steve, you're an airline pilot. You built a business. You coach these huge people. You do this, you do that. When's enough's enough? And I'm like, why do you think it has to be enough? Like, this is it. This is what I enjoy doing. This is a journey in my life. And so for people that think that a certain amount of doors or a certain decimal point or comma in your bank account is going to give you happiness, I can tell you personally, from firsthand experience, and look, money fixes a lot of shit. Don't get me wrong. You can buy cool fucking things with money, but it's not what you think it is. And it doesn't. And you know what? The reality is nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit if you have $1 million, $5 million, or $5 in your bank account. If you don't care and you don't do something with your own happiness, nobody cares. And that took me a long time to understand that,
Wow, that's incredible. So I'm going to try to figure out the best way to articulate this question, because you've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, and obviously, and I don't want this to sound like pompous anyway. No. Is entrepreneur is that like a trait? Like, do some people just have it and some don't, or can you actually coach almost anyone?
You can coach I've learned that you can coach anybody. Everybody has a drive, right? Someone's drive may be eating cake. I don't know. You know what I mean? But everybody has a drive. Here's what I've learned. And look, let me be honest. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't think I did, at least. I just wanted to be an airline pilot. That's all I wanted to do. Society and some circumstances pushed me in this direction, and I ran with it. Yes. But I think I would have been fine just being an airline pilot, right? I really do. I'm glad I didn't. I mean, my biggest successes are from my biggest failures, but I think anybody can. But let me explain my analogy of life. And when we sold our business, I'll get as an example, we were business owners, and I did a pivot and I started working, I did stuff with Bigger Pockets and all these other organizations and speaking on stages, because I came at it from a business perspective. And I had a lot of people ask me, people that I knew in the industry, Brandon and all these other guys, they were like, Steve, like, why'd you sell your business? Like, you had this multi-million-dollar company. It was doing great. Everything was going good. You're an airline pilot. Like, why'd you mess with it? So here's my answer. And this may help the entrepreneurs in us. Everyone's life, I believe, is like a book. And in a book, we write chapters. Some chapters are long and some chapters, they're short. Some are good, some are bad, right? A chapter doesn't have to be bad to end. We can end a chapter on a good note. For me, at my time in my life of being an entrepreneur, that chapter was over. I shut the book. I closed that chapter. I sold my company. And then I went on to a new chapter. People are like, hey, Steve, would you open another property management company? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't. Like, I know about it. And I actually coach property management companies today, but I wouldn't, because I tell people that was a chapter. That chapter's closed. Look, we all know friends in high school that live in that high school chapter, right? They carry it on with them the whole life. We all
Best
have
4 years of my life.
right? Exactly, right? Touchdown, polk high. That was my day, And there's nothing, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm not better than anybody, but I've just learned that one chapter will carry you through. And I take some stuff from my old chapters. I mean, I've probably invested close to $1 million in coaching in myself. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. It's financially, it's paid off, but that's fine. And so I think everybody has the entrepreneurial spirit. Some people mask it in fear, and they mask it in the illusion of safety and security of a job, which we all know is the most unsecure. And I learned it. 9/11, man, I had the best, safest, secure job on the planet as an airline pilot. And 2 days after 9/11, I got given a furlough notice, and they said, hey, Steve, you know what? Thanks for playing, but we don't need you anymore. And you're about to be on the street with 50,000 pilots. I'm like, I didn't do anything. Like, why am I getting penalized? They're like, it's just how the game is played, man. This is the world. So I think everybody, when your should becomes a must and you are willing to go down that path, yes, you can. Does everybody want to do that? No. I mean, I knew a lot of pilots. Pilots are very smart guys. There were guys that were clinging to their jobs, going over to Korea, China, South America, flying these shithole planes just to keep a job as a pilot. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm going to go learn real estate, and I'll get my job when it's time to get my job back again. But until that time, I'm not clinging to fear. And that's what a lot of people do.
That's so true. Fear is so powerful. That's certainly one reason that took me so long. I mean, I joke all the time, if I had been able to pull my head out of my butt at 21, I'd already be a millionaire. But, I had to have the path that I had to be on, and I'm grateful for it. But certainly I sat on the sidelines for a long time of fear. And just like you said in the very beginning, first thing you should do is hire a coach. As soon as I joined a mentorship group back in September, I've grown more in the last 8 months than I had in the previous 3 years professionally, like business-wise. I mean,
look, why, the thing is, here's the thing. Why would you not, like, when you look at professionals, right? Let's take professional athletes. Let's take Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan, to me, was probably the most talented athlete in the history of any sport. This guy practiced 8 hours a day, every single day, and he had 5 coaches. So was he the best because he practiced? Was he the best that he had coaches? Or was he the best and they brought that out of him, right? So you look at professionals, they practice every day, they're coached, they focus on it. Other people, they don't want to coach, they don't want to practice, but yet they want to call themselves a professional, but they're shocked when their bank account doesn't match what they think in their mind. So I've learned a lot of times when you look, if people are afraid to spend or invest in coaching, they're afraid to make. Yeah. And I've learned that very on. Like, I've got people that I coach. I've got a guy that I coach right now. He was a little nervous. I started coaching him, and listen, I'm not inexpensive when I coach people. Now we're talking about what kind of corporate jet he's going to own, and he's getting a driver to drive him. So, I mean, talk about a mind shift. And this is only within a year of me coaching him.
Wow.
But the thing is it's right here. You have to change who you are mentally first. If you don't change who you are, and again, you don't become that 10, 20, $30 million CEO, and you're thinking like a scared $50,000 CEO, afraid to even invest a couple dollars in yourself. You really think someone's gonna magically just come and go like, please, let me give you this multi-million-dollar contract. Because you know what? You'll never see the opportunity because You're so afraid of spending money, you'll never make money.
Gosh, that's so true. And how powerful. And really, it got put into a good perspective for me. Not too long ago, actually, I was doing an episode with someone, same philosophy. And they said, you need to stop looking at the price and start focusing on the value.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing. Money is a renewable source. We are always going to make more money. Look, I tell people all the time, you invest with me $60,000 and I coach you. Do you think you're going to be better off or worse off from me helping you for 1 year? What do you think? Chances are you're going to double that money, if not triple it. And I'm not trying to impress anyone, but I have invested $60,000 for 1 day with a certain person.
Wow.
Just to learn certain skills. You want to talk about stepping up and putting your money where your mouth is, drop 60 grand to spend a day with someone. I mean, but I believe in it that much. And you know what? It's made me a lot of money because I've done that, and I'm not afraid to do that. So, if you look at anyone successful, I was just talking with, he was on my mastermind the other day, a gentleman, his name is Indar Lang, right? He's the biggest flipper in Hawaii, right? He's in 15 states. He's got about $27 million always in motion in assets. He told me, he goes, Steve, he goes, I spend a minimum of $100,000 a year just in self-development. He goes, it's earmarked. I spend it. He goes, but it makes me millions. Who would not spend $100,000 to make millions? I don't understand. Like, if you don't see the math there, then you will never be successful. And you're not the person that I or anybody would want to work with. It's just not there.
Gosh, that is so incredible. And it's so true. So every Friday I do a solo episode, and my first ever one was literally about how important mentorship is, because for this reason alone, I'm going to 10X my investment in my mentorship probably in the first year.
Yeah.
So
it's all about and the thing is taking action. That's the thing.
That's the other thing, of course.
It's funny, man. I get people all the time that give me reasons why they can't do something. Like, look, I have a busy schedule. I'm a busy person, and I'm okay with that. So I like working out. So what do? I get up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym. And people are like, man, I don't know how you could do that. I could never do that. And I'm like, you know what? You never will, because you just told me you'll never do it. So you know what? I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter to me. Like, it doesn't, like, if you want to be a fat ass or lazy or whatever makes you feel better to justify. I'm not here to judge anybody. I didn't say, like, hey, guess what I do in the morning? I just do this because that's what I have to do to live my life. And I'm okay doing that. Like, and the thing is you do what others won't do so you can have the life that others won't have. It's very simple. And I'm willing to put in the work. I'm willing to, I showed you my studio setup I have in here. I'm constantly filming content. I'm coached by people. I mean, I've got a pretty big payroll of people that I pay to help me. And these are all people that guide me, but I believe in that. I believe in that. And it's come back to me many, many fold. So 100%, anything that you put money in, if you take action and you take focus and intention, like I will tell you, one of my challenges early on is when I had the business, I was a bit scattered. I had ego, right? All of a sudden I had these people ask me, hey, do you want to come to Australia and speak? Sure. Hey, Steve, do you want to come build this? Sure. Do you want to? And my business partner was always like, dude, he'd reel me back again. He's like, no, we got to focus on building the business. I'm like, yeah, but they want me to come speak. He's like, I don't give a shit. He's like, if it doesn't grow the company, you're not going. And so he was really good at keeping me reeled in. And now that I'm kind of I don't have the business, he and I are still good friends, but we're not partners anymore. But I am so focused because of him keeping me guided and keeping me grounded. I tell people all the time, if you're not focused and you're not intentional on one thing, it doesn't matter. It's there's no such thing as multitasking, right? People think like, I multitask. Well, if you look up the term multitasking, there's no such thing. It doesn't exist. There's alternative tasking. Multitasking started when IBM Computer said, oh, it can multitask. It can do multiple things. But you can't. You really can't. Your brain is not even possible. Like, if I'm landing a Boeing 777, would you want me juggling at the same time? I'm multitasking. Right. You'd be like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Like, land the plane.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I can do this. I'm multitasking. It's like, no, that's focus. You want all my focus. So if you think of your business, think of it like landing a Boeing 777. You want all your focus on your business and your success in your real estate. And if you're not doing that, something is getting lost. Something is not getting accomplished. And it's because you're not focused.
Gosh, that's so powerful and so true. And one thing I will touch on when it comes to, hiring coaches and things, for the most part, at least the people that I've seen, and certainly for me, when you put skin in the game, you usually are going to follow with action, especially when you get up into these upper echelon and how much these things cost. Typically the action is going to follow because you've now made an investment, right? Like if you are personally a business, you've now invested in your business and you need to see a return. And it's not really until like, you can download every ebook and watch YouTube till you're blue in the face, but until you invest and someone's holding you accountable, I don't really, for the most part.
It's funny. I've got friends and I've got people that will reach out to me, and they don't have the money coming in to help. And I've got a select group of people that are very small that I will help them for free. So I will coach them for free. Now, again, I charge up to $60,000 to coach people, right? And some people I will do it because I think if I can give back and pay it forward, I do. The ones that are not successful are the ones that don't pay me. It's just, there's no perceived value. And I'm like, you realize someone else is paying me $60,000 for the thing I'm giving you for free. They ghost me on meetings. They're like, oh, sorry, man, I forgot we're having this. I'm like, MFer, you realize I blocked my time for you.
Right.
And it's not about the money. It's the respect of my time. Like,
absolutely.
If you don't, it blows my mind when people do that. They're like, oh, sorry, man, it's cool. I'll catch you next time. I'm like, really? You will? Because I don't think you're going to. So let me tell you this, when I coach people, one of the first things I do, so this is another thing that I would say for your guests or listeners. The first thing I do when I coach someone is I do I tell them I want to see a 2-week time study of their day. From the time they wake up to the time they go to bed, I want to see everything that they do. They have to write it down. I don't want it typed. I don't want a picture. I don't want any fucking app. I want it written down, pen to paper. I want to see what they do. That's the first thing they're going to do. Second thing they're going to do is they are going to give me a total of how many hours they spent. 2 hours on the phone, 3 hours internet. I don't care what it is. I just need to see what their time is going. Absolutely. And then the last piece, the third piece, they have to give me an executive summary. So they have to tell me, just in their words, how they think their day went. That's what I want to know. Now, here's the thing. Even after someone has paid me, I tell them, if you do not send it in, it will be the last time you hear from me. I can't want it more than you. So I don't know if you know who Ashley Kerr is. She's a good friend of mine, Real Estate Rookie podcast show. So she reached out back in the day, and she's like, hey, I want some help, blah, blah, blah. So I started coaching her, and I told her, I said, listen, I'm not going to ask twice. If you do not send it in, you will never hear from me again. And so one day it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I was actually flying a trip, and I sent her a thing. I said, I haven't gotten your schedule for today. I'm not going to ask again.
Oh, they have to send it each day for 2 weeks.
Every day I want to see it. Wow. Because what happens is if I say, hey, you're doing stupid shit, Jonathan, stop doing this, you're going to go, no, I'm productive. If I say it, it's not true. But when you actually are writing it down, you want to go on a diet, track your food. You want to see where your money's going? Do a ledger. You want to see where your time's going? Do a time study. And what happens is, this is key. Normally, on the first week, they will basically be able to identify where they are wasting time.
Yeah.
And the second week is more towards fixing it. And so the way you fix it is what we do is I say, okay, what are some low-level, low-enjoyment tasks, minimum wage activities that you should not be doing? Let's list them. We list them all out. Okay, these are virtual assistant jobs or employees or automation, but you're not doing them anymore. I don't give a shit what you do. You're not doing them. Figure out someone else to do them. I do not want to see them on your schedule again. Figure it out. When your should becomes a must, you will do it. So I'm forcing them out of their comfort zone, but what they're doing is they're starting to understand that they are, most of the time, they're running a reactive life. They're constantly getting pinged back and forth, and they're not accomplishing. So if you got a 5-minute phone call that you were not expecting, statistically, that is 23 minutes of lost time. So 23 minutes you've lost because you've got to disengage what you're doing. You got to have this conversation. Then you've got a reactionary deal with it. If you get 10 calls a day, right? If you're doing real estate or you're doing something and you get 10 calls a day, that's 230 minutes of lost time. That is almost 4 hours of lost time that you've just lost.
Holy cow.
And that's when you go, man, I don't know what I did today, but I was just putting out fires, dealing with bullshit. I don't know where my day went.
Yeah.
That's why.
Wow.
That's why.
Yeah. When I joined Raise Masters, which is my mentor group, not sure if you know Hunter Thompson, shout out. That was the thing we had to do, was the 2 week, and oh man, you want to talk about the most humbling experience.
Yeah.
2
It's
weeks is a
huge, man.
long time to and listen, like obviously, like, but when you write down, when all of a sudden you got lost on Instagram for 30 minutes and you have to write it down, and someone's going to see that you were on Instagram for 30 minutes at 11:30 a.m. when you should have, when you have all these other things you should be doing. Oh,
Well, and what's so funny, man, is I get people all the time. They're like, man, I'm working my ass off. And I'm like, really? Because what I'm seeing is you're putting in about 3 hours of work and you're fucking around the rest of the time. You're you're in your car.
What that screen time report tells you Sunday night. Let's see what you're really.
Dude, it's so often it happens. So, but again, it's getting them to change their patterns. You've got to change their habits. You've got to change their patterns to get them to be successful. And it's part of the process. Like, we're all adults. We pretty much have a routine of who we are. You have to really want to change who you are. And it's like going to the gym. I can tell you what weights to lift, but I'm not going to lift them. It's not going to help you if I lift the weight. So people are always like, well, if you're my coach, how are you going to help me? I'm like, I'm not going to fucking do anything. You're going to do it. I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to do it. I can't tell you, I can't do the work for you. So if you can't even do enough to send me a sheet of paper at the end of the night, if that's too complicated, you think you're going to grow a multi-million-dollar business? I mean, let's be realistic here. Like, you want a unicorn to ride to work over a rainbow too? Like, can I give you that? It's like, it just doesn't work, And so I try, look, I tell people all the time, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to make you successful. There's a difference. And my role, my job is to do what it takes to take market share from your competition. And I tell people all the time, when I work with people, my goal is to put your competitors out of business. That's my job. And the one thing that you better be scared about is if I'm coaching your competition and now we're coming after you, because we will do whatever it takes to win. And so I tell people, look, this isn't a kumbaya. I love when people are like, oh, we get along. This is not bullshit. You know what? You are not a business person, because if you're in business and you're up against me, I'm going to do everything I can to win. And that means winning means taking your market share. That's just how it is.
Gosh, that's so true. I know. I just brought on, so I joined the mentorship group, then I brought on a life coach. And obviously, like, there is a business aspect to it. He works with very high level people, kind of similar to you, but it's a little bit more of like, some therapy involved and stuff. And we started as friends. Like, I met, and we actually, he also coaches some other people I'm familiar with. And so we kind of like built a friendship, and then we started this, and all of a sudden it switched to like what it is. And he kicks my ass. Shout out to JD. Love you. But oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's his job, right?
Correct. Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%. And it's like, it's refreshing in hindsight, but in the moment when you're getting your ass kicked, it's hard. But then you look back and you're like, wow, I needed that so bad.
Well, and look, all the people that I coach, I tell them, like, look, when I, and again, this is just me, like, I'm a normal guy, right? I'm giving you my perspective of life that's different than maybe other people's perspective. And you know what? When I come into town, I fly all over the country. When I come in town, man, I meet you. We got drinks, we have cocktails. We'll get, we'll drink. We're fine. But you know what? When I put on, when you want me to put on that coaching hat, that mentor, it's different. It's a different thing, because to me, that's my obligation. That's what you're trusting me. So I take it seriously, because I assume you're taking it seriously. It's like, and that's the thing. I'm like, look, I'm not going to freaking do this if you don't. Like, I don't need it. I don't need the money. I don't need to waste my time. I don't need to waste anyone's time. If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. Totally fine with that. But let's be realistic with what we're trying to do, and let's have a realistic conversation. And that's what it's about.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so true. I love that so much. Well, we're up against time. I mean, honestly, whatever. We're over it, and it's incredible. I was never going to stop this early, because this has been so amazing. I wish we could keep going, but I do have 5 questions I ask all of my guests. It's the final 5. I'm very excited for your answers. What's the best advice you've gotten from a mentor?
The best advice I got was fail fast, fail often, and get up and keep charging.
Oh, I love that so much. What is it about your career that makes you feel like you're fulfilling your why?
You know what? When I see other people succeed beyond my success because of help I've given them, that is my why.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. Favorite non-real estate or investment related book?
Ooh, favorite non-real estate or non-investment book. Vince Flynn, Term Limits.
Okay. I'm going to write that down. Got a nice list going. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Boy, that's a good one. Superpower. I would love to be able to read people's minds.
I love it. It's a good one. It's a good
Yeah.
one. I'm a little surprised you didn't pick flying, but I guess you know how to fly pretty much any airplane. So
Yeah, I've been in the air for 30 years, man. I've seen the best sunrises, best sunsets. I've been to every continent except Antarctica. I've got some miles on this body, man.
I love that. Isn't there such a thing as like, what do they call it? Not altitude sickness, but something where if pilots fly too long, something where you're like, gosh, I can't remember what the heck it was
really.
called. Huh. Okay.
Not
Well,
really.
I made that up, so ignore that.
Yeah, it's good. We can go with it.
Awesome. And what's the best way for people to get a hold of you and learn more?
Sure. So they can go to my website. Is easy. It's steverozenberg.com. So it's ROZENBERG. They can follow me on all the channels on social media. I have a YouTube channel, Steve Rozenberg. I have an Instagram, Rozenberg Steve. Facebook. I also have a podcast show, High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. I just launched it, and it's business related. It's not necessarily real estate, but I've got some amazing guests that are on this show that I've already teed up. I got a professional body language expert that works for ATF that reads your body languages. Another person that does facial recognition that can tell what your face is. I mean, just stuff that you're like, man, that is interesting. So I got the Iron Cowboys coming on. He's done 50 Ironmans in 50 days.
Yeah, he spoke at, I was in tech before this, and he spoke at our SKO. And he brought me to tears. So
yeah, he's a great story. So anyways, I got a podcast show that's on all the channels, all that. So yeah, if anybody, I'm very, very approachable. People reach out to me on social media. I answer because I feel it's respectful. If somebody asks me a question, I feel that it's respectful to answer because that's how I was raised. So if anybody has a question for me and you just want to pick my brain, I don't need to freaking charge you anything or any of that bullshit. 10
grand.
Yeah, 10 grand. That's if you have a Visa, we can swipe it. That's cool. Yeah, if I can help, man, look, we're entrepreneurs at heart. We're all trying to make better lives for ourselves. If I can help in my small way, I'm happy to do that.
God, I can't thank you enough. Seriously. Like, we didn't even talk one bit about real estate, but I can't tell you how, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love talking about this, which is why I do it, but it's so refreshing and such incredible. The listeners are going to be so grateful. So thank you so much. I'm really so grateful.
My pleasure. And I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully I made some impactful things that will make people think about a little differently about their lives.
Absolutely. And if not the listeners, then selfishly, you help me a lot. So
my pleasure, brother. My pleasure.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. Listen, I know it's cliche and you hear it all the time, but please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you know when the next video is coming out. Even though this is technically a daily podcast, you know it's coming out the next day. We have a ton of content coming your way. So please like and subscribe. It helps a ton. Leave comments. Would love to know what you guys think. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks so much.